Hey, welcome to a super special episode of Erik Learns the Hard Way. This is Artist Says. It's its own flavor, and that's mostly because I've run out of wisdom. I think it's important to have people that have other things to say and talk to them. And Blayne Chastain, a friend of mine, I've known him for years, is an artist. Wow, so many different art forms and so many different businesses. You are going to love this. Welcome, Blayne.
Yeah, thanks for having
All
me.
right, so here's the deal. Have you seen these before?
I can't.
These
Yeah.
these are your questions.
Oh no. What are those tarot cards?
No. They're regular playing cards. So we're going to start with the Ace of Spades. We'll ask the first one on that for you. So here we go. Question number 1: Is there a project you're working on right now that you can share a little bit about?
Yeah, so currently we're under this sort of social distancing. There's this thing that's going on in the world that we're all dealing with, and my business, I have this business called the Irish Flute Store, where sort of fell into this business of selling Irish flutes. I play the Irish flute, and so that's kind of how that happened. But so oftentimes makers will send me flutes for me to check out and possibly sell on our site. And a couple weeks ago, he wanted me to also do like a sound sample of the flute. And so when I was sitting down to work on this demo, at first I was going to play some Irish kind of up tempo jigs, and because of this sort of time that we're in right now, I just wasn't feeling like playing a jig. It just felt too, I don't know, it felt a little tone deaf, to sort of the climate that we're in. And so I just wrote kind of a simple, slower piece, and I call it While We Wait. And it's just an instrumental piece, but it showcases his flute. The flute maker's name is Jay Ham. And so currently, I recorded it a couple weeks ago with my friend Peter Romero. He was playing piano. He and I went over to the church that I'm the music director for here in town. It's called St. Patrick Presbyterian Church. And there's nothing going on over there. So we did a real quick, little video session there, him playing piano. And so right now, that's recorded, but I'm editing that right now. So hopefully that'll be released in the next, I don't know, few days.
Nice. Looking forward to hearing that. All right, so here's how this goes. We've got each one of these cards actually has a question on the back side. I'll hold it up to the phone there so you can't read the question, but there you go. That's there we go. Didn't in focus. So I want you're going to get to pick your own. I've gone through the deck and I've shuffled it. I'm just going to hold them out here and you tell me when to stop. All right?
Okay.
And that's the question that you get here. Let's go this way.
Stop.
All right, eight of spades. Here we go. What are some concrete steps an emerging artist can take to move to the next level? You've been around. You started all kinds of things. But what are some concrete steps an emerging artist can take to move to the next level?
Well, I think a lot of times, like for me, even now, I feel like really an artist never stops emerging. I feel like an artist is always growing, and when you're not, you just don't feel right. Like artists, and really, I think most of us really have a burden on our hearts to create, but especially artists. And so if we're not emerging, if we're not creating, then we stagnate, and that stagnation just kind of puts us, sort of off kilter. So what I would say to that is, at one of my students actually, so I've done a lot of teaching of music over the years, and one of my students was really, she plays a lot of different instruments, and she's into a lot of different things, and she didn't know where to put the energy, and one of our mutual friends said to her, his name's Roger Landis. He's a great Irish bouzouki player, and he said, what is the music asking of you right now? So I guess the question is like, what is your art, or what is the music, or whatever you do? What is it asking of you right now? Because there's probably three things that you could answer pretty quickly. And it doesn't have to mean anything like really like big ideas or anything like that, but it could be literally like, for me, it's like, I need to edit this video. Like, I filmed this 2 weeks ago and I still haven't released it because, more important things have gotten in the way. And so I think that there's always work to be done. And if you sit down in your studio, or you're in front of your computer, or behind your paintbrush, or whatever it is, you know what the next thing is to do, and it could be just finishing what you started, and then of course art is really service, and so to create art in a vacuum, I suppose one could do that, right? One could create things and never share them, but really art is service. Really, like, we should be making things for others to enjoy, and for others to process, and for others to, take in. So I think the combination of just taking the practical steps of what do the art is asking of you, and then how can you share it? And these days, there's no end to how we can share things. I mean,
right. So what I hear you saying is, the artist probably already knows some steps that they should be taking by asking the art itself, and then share it. Whatever the thing is, you've got to make some things and share it.
Yeah, and I think oftentimes we think, it needs to be something big or bigger than what I'm already doing. But I think that's if we struggle to feel that way all the time, then we'll never move forward, Okay. And what might not, like this video and this piece that I wrote. Honestly, this piece that I wrote, I feel is like a very simple piece, and part of me was like, I don't know, is it too simple? Like, and then I shared it with somebody, and they're like, oh, I love this. This is great, and so it's like that. It's fighting those little voices in your head that say, oh, that's too simple, or it's not, a big enough gesture artistically, or whatever, or it doesn't break enough new ground. Just keep producing, and keep letting those that want to follow what you do get to,
Cool. So yeah, don't let the it has to be monumental.
Yeah.
Everything you do.
Yeah.
Be groundbreaking.
Yeah.
To move forward. Cool. All right. Let's go. So many questions.
Right there.
All right. 3 of spades. A little bit of country or a little bit of rock and roll? What's your favorite genre of music to listen to yourself? And name one track that we should hear that maybe we haven't.
Man. So, I play, professionally, I play, a lot of Irish traditional music, and also church music, hymns, and that sort of thing. But 9 times out of 10, if you were to, catch me listening to music, it would be neither
That's
of those.
What I'm talking about.
It would be neither of those genres,
What would it be?
Sort of a lot of the music that I listen to is sort of like in this folk / what do you call it? Post-rock kind of, post-rock sort of genre.
Okay, so give us an example. What should we listen to?
Yeah, and I'm really terrible at the names of tracks, but one of my favorite sort of minimalist post-rock groups is the album Leaf, and I love his music, and he collaborates with people, but largely it's stuff that he just records himself, and
cool.
I'm trying to remember the name of any particular
Don't worry
track.
about it. Let's come back to that, and we'll put a link down below to that track, and we'll give it a whirl, because I want to hear it too.
Yeah. Cool.
You feeling lucky?
Never. No.
All right, man, you're getting all the spades here. Two of spades. It is said that a fool and his money are soon parted. How about an artist and their money? Share some financial wisdom you have gained on your journey.
Oh man, that's a tough one because I feel like I have not been that financially wise. Honestly.
Hey, this does not have to be like that you own all the things and that you're hey, this channel is called Erik Learns the Hard Way. Okay,
Yeah.
so I'm not coming at this from all success, but what are some things that you would share with up and coming people? Maybe things you've done well or things maybe you haven't done well, just to kind of be aware of.
Well, that's what I was gonna say. Is just like I don't know that I've done a great job at this, but I seem to be doing better lately, and that is paying yourself and your family. The thing is it depends on the sort of art that you're into. Some can demand that you put a lot more investment, actual like money investment,
Capital,
capital than others. So, just up until recently, I was doing a lot of film production, and that's something where you can really get sucked into buying new and better gear always. And I think,
it's bottomless.
And I think just really setting your personal or your family budget, setting that in stone, so that you know what your family needs or you need, so that then you can then look at your income if you've got an income from your art, that is, or your business. We'll call it, your art or your commerce or whatever you're doing, and don't spend all your money on, just your business. Make sure you're taking some sort of draw for yourself or your family. And here's the thing, when you're taking care of the roof over your head kind of stuff, all that stuff that falls under that category, your health insurance, your, groceries, your, whatever whatever your budget is, then you're able to show up to your studio and go, okay, now I'm free to create. And this gets into as you get better at budgeting personally, it frees you up, to then when it helps me be more creative because I can set that aside and I know what I need personally, so I can devote my full attention to my craft or my art. I will say, not for this to be a commercial for my favorite budgeting software, but YNAB stands for You Need a Budget. I think I've mentioned this to you before, Erik.
We've talked about it.
Hooked on YNAB because it almost kind of gamifies your budgeting, and it really helps you take control. It's sort of like a modern day cash envelope system, like Dave Ramsey used to, or probably still talks about. Yeah. But since cash is sort of not what we use on a daily basis anymore, it's sort of a modern take on that.
Yeah, and I would say that that's actually not super far from the advice that Ramit Sethi has in his book, I Will Teach You to Be Rich. He talks about every dollar having its place and automating as much of that as possible. And it's very much about budgeting. It's taking care of the things you need to take care of first and then elsewhere. Because like you alluded to, sometimes the starting business person or artist feels like all of the money that they make has to go back into the business.
Right. You can also sometimes feel like if you're not really on top of your personal finances at home, you can also feel like all your money has to go into the home as well, because if you're kind of bleeding money in categories where you really shouldn't be, like if you're going out to eat too much, if you're spending too much money on alcohol or whatever, your vices or whatever, your business might be suffering because you're not able to keep some of that in the business. So it kind of works both ways. In the YNAB culture, they call it giving every dollar a job.
Yeah. Awesome. Let's do it again.
Now.
Oh. You pick some clovers.
All right. Nice.
If you could be any character from a movie or TV show for one day, who would you be?
Any character from a movie or a TV show?
Yeah, who would you be?
For one day. Gosh, that's a tough one because, I just don't. I'm not.
I don't overthink it. Don't overthink it.
Okay, all right. For one day. I suppose. What's the Avengers? What's the dude? The Elon Musk character? What's the guy that flies around in his jet suit?
Oh, is it Captain America? No.
No.
I don't know. I don't know the Avengers
this is
real
funny
well,
that I'm
so.
saying this because I don't.
Oh, you mean Iron Man?
Iron Man, yes. That's terrible. Yeah, because it's funny. I'm not a big Avengers. I don't fan, but my family is, and so we watch a lot of these. And I usually this is terrible, but I just fall asleep in the middle of them, But Iron Man, I mean, it'd be cool to fly, and so.
Oh, right on.
And he has a pretty sweet pad, pretty sweet place.
Yeah, right,
So,
right.
I don't know.
Right.
Am I supposed
Plus, you could just stick a video camera on and you get amazing aerials, right?
Right. Was part of the question why or just?
No, just who would you be?
I think when I think about if I was to be any animal, it's typically I think of wanting to be a bird, like a hawk or because I just think flying, just to be able to fly like that's got to be amazing.
Right. Well, I mean, the next best thing is being a drone pilot like you are.
Right.
So.
Right.
All right. Let's go.
Now.
Next. Oh. Talk about contests and awards. In business and especially among artists, there's always contests, always awards. Talk about that a little bit.
Gosh, I don't know if I can speak a whole lot to that because I've not done a whole lot.
Okay, so I'll ask you this then. If you haven't, why have you chosen not to?
I think probably because I feel like I wouldn't win. I don't know. I kind of feel like I guess I feel like I've kind of carved out my own niche in a way where contests, the space that I live in there is so niche that contests often don't apply. So my two main genres in music are rewriting old hymns, writing new music for that, and sure there's songwriting contests and stuff like that, but not as much for this specific niche that I'm in. And then in the Irish music world, I suppose, there's the All Ireland competitions that, you can compete in. There's a regional competition for playing Irish music.
So, but you haven't felt compelled to enter those things.
Well, there was a time when I was first getting into playing Irish music that I thought that maybe I should enter in one of those. A friend of mine was encouraging me to enter in one of the All Ireland competitions because they like the way that I play slow airs, slow pieces of music. And I guess part of it is just you have to travel and whatever. I don't know. I look at the amount of time that it takes to play that game in terms of the contest and stuff like that, and sort of waiting on somebody else to say yes, you're good, you win, versus just creating good stuff and just saying, and just these days we're able to be so direct to those that follow us that and to build an audience just without any sort of third party sort of involvement that I guess for me, a lot of times, sure, some of it may have been I would do this, but there's some fear factor that goes into maybe not entering into contests, but also so much of what I've done, I've just been I'm going to create something and put it out there, and you can these days. So yeah, I don't know. Maybe that's not a great answer, but
No, actually, but it goes to what you said earlier about just create, just get stuff and put it out there.
Yeah, and I like the idea of, and I'm trying to remember who I borrowed this idea from, but is the idea just that is to always try to put yourself in a position where, as a creative, that you're not waiting on somebody else's approval. You're just creating good work and a good amount of it, so that people can enjoy it and start following you and telling their friends and that sort of thing, instead of going, I just wish that somebody would notice me. I think, yeah.
Yeah, no, that's yeah, the landscape has changed, over the last decade or more, and it's a totally different game, and that's a good point.
There are certain industry or certain sectors, like if you're wanting to be a pop singer, right? I mean, it would be amazing to be on American Idol or whatever, because that's such a huge, what you're after is such a huge, wide market, that having something like that would be really help to elevate you. Whereas maybe a small little following on YouTube might not,
Yeah.
But
So a follow-up question to that is that if you even if you want that bigger market, do you wait for that break, or do you just keep creating content, and then if the break comes, you take it?
Yeah, if you do all the above, and I think that most would, come to that conclusion. But yeah, definitely for those of you that are just sitting on the sidelines waiting for a break. I mean, I don't know how many of us are like that anymore, just because it's just easy to hit the go live button on Facebook. You know what I mean? So we really are in different times, I'd say.
Let's go.
Now.
Ooh, first female. And the Queen asks, where is the most unusual place your art has taken you?
Yeah, so, I've done a lot of different things between, I suppose music, entrepreneurship and e-commerce, but
yeah. So pick your favorite, any place,
Yeah.
most unusual place. Maybe not favorite place, but one of the most unusual places. Maybe you go out there and you're like, man, how did I get here?
Yeah, well, I would say that these days I'm not traveling as much as I used to, but when I was doing film production, the one thing that kept one of the many things I say that kept me interested was where it took me, and I still, in the building that I work out of, we have like these screens up, and it shows some of our past work up on these screens, and it, film production has taken me all over the world, and I mean, it's probably the Philippines, the southern Philippines. It took like, I don't know how many flights to get to our final destination, and then eventually, like, as part of this, we were filming this documentary on organic farming, and eventually, like, it required us to like take a Jeep ride into this village that we're talking about, like, people that have never seen regular sort of civilization, like this is like, a 2 hour into the bush country, just like, and, having that community, like sitting there and like, being invited to lunch and having that community make an amazing, I'm starting to laugh because Phil, who was with me, ended up getting food poisoning from that experience.
So that's probably memorable for him too.
Yeah, but seeing the guys like climb up without a rope, like on these like coconut trees, and like us drinking like fresh coconut water, and it was amazing. So filmmaking has definitely taken me into places that I just couldn't imagine.
So rattle off a few more places you've been with your filmmaking.
Well, filmmaking, I mean, Iceland. It's taken me to Iceland a couple times for doing a little, travel documentary.
You've been to Ireland, yeah?
All over Ireland, yeah. I did a documentary on a well-known Irish flute maker named Patrick Olwell, and that took me all over Ireland and all over the U.S. and Canada. So yeah, and I should say that like also the music itself took me to Ireland. You know, in 2005 I moved there to get my master's degree in Irish music. So you know, I suppose that is not to be discounted. That was a pretty amazing experience.
Yeah, you shouldn't not count that.
Yeah.
Ready?
Now.
All right. And so what we're doing this because obviously we're in two different locations and he can't be near me to choose these, so we're doing this virtually. Here we go. We got some 10 of clubs. What is one thing that was difficult but has become easier for you with experience? With your business or art? Something that was, you know, just maybe it was tedious or maybe you just didn't know how to do it. And now that you've done it, you're like, okay, I got over that hill and now that's not really a thing for you.
You know, I think performing and it kind of, you know, I think for those of us that have sort of performance anxiety, which I would consider myself, you know, one that has struggled with that. Whatever it is I remember, so as a music director for a church, you know, like I remember it took me actually a few years before I just felt at ease with it, you know? And I think, you know, it just, I got comfortable by doing it just by doing it, you know? And so I remember when I was getting my master's degree in Ireland, you know, on the Irish flute, and it was a performance degree. And I just remember performing in front of, you know, like all your peers, and not only that, but I'm like a Yank as they call us Americans, you know, over there performing for, you know, some of my peers that are Irish, you know, born and bred. And so that was a kind of a, you know, my nerves got the better of me on a few occasions when I was doing some of my recitals, and, you know, I had some better ones, and, you know, but, you know, fast forward, you know, a few years after that, like I started teaching online, started teaching Irish music online. And I was nervous about that because I'm like, okay, well, who am I to start teaching, you know, this Irish music online, you know, for a kid that grew up in Hollywood, California, you know, and now like I've made Irish music sort of my career. It was kind of a hard thing for me to but you know what I think I realized is one day I was, you know, at the time I had a handful of students that would come to me locally, and you know, oftentimes they would say, gosh, I really love taking courses, you know, taking lessons with you. You really help to explain things in a way that I just previously didn't know how to unpack or whatever. And I thought, gosh, well, if my local students appreciate my style of teaching, why wouldn't those online? I mean, what's the difference other than you open yourself up for sort of more trolly criticism, perhaps, you know? But you know, you can't live in fear of that kind of stuff, you know. Like if you ever want to have a wider audience than your bedroom, you know, then you have to get out there and, you know.
Cool. So just getting it done. I mean, what I hear you saying is the way you worked through that was just simply working through it, just doing it. It was repetition.
Yeah. And
cool.
and if, you know, for musicians, like if you're ever in, you know, developing a sort of a critical, like, we'll call it a constructively critical eye or ear for your own work, takes time too. Because I think sometimes when you're first starting out, you're just so geeked out that you did something cool that it sometimes is harder to see that where you could improve, you know. But over time, you sort of develop like what's a really high standard and what's sort of, you know, somewhere in the middle, and somewhere what's down, you know, not a great standard. And hopefully, if you're really serious about something, you're pushing for that top, the best you can do, right? The best. And so I think sometimes for us musicians, it's like letting others hear and critique, and sometimes it's just simply recording yourself playing. And I would sometimes literally with like a notepad, I would like I know this is kind of like digressing from your initial question, but like I would sometimes like when I would get ready for a performance, like I would play the piece and record it, and then I would take a step back, put my instrument down, and I would just write notes, very actionable like items of like, okay, on the B section of this piece of music, when I went into this one note, I fumbled on that, and it's a consistent thing. Okay, I'm gonna make an exercise out of that. So, it's just finding ways to kind of sharpen your game so that when you're performing, you've at least checked off all the boxes that to check off to be able to deliver something that's solid, So
Okay, so yeah, review yourself, check yourself,
Yeah.
practice, move forward.
yeah.
Cool. No, that's cool.
Stop.
Oh, it's another queen. Talk about intentionality, strategy, and the arc of a career. Now, you don't have to like work through, somebody's entire career here, but talk specifically about intentionality and strategy and how that plays into the arc of a career. Does it have a place, or do you just do your art and just let it unfold organically, and if it goes somewhere, it goes somewhere, and if it doesn't, it doesn't?
Well, I think I've really struggled with focusing on, because I have a lot of different interests and sort of abilities in different artistic realms, and that's been a hard thing for me. And I think that for me, what's honestly helped me be more intentional and more focused is just to take care of myself and my family, like, and our needs. Because I feel like sometimes, like, when you're dabbling in so many different things, and it can even be things that are directly making you income, but sometimes I think it comes down to, like, not just doing an art form or something or a business because it'll make you money, but doing something that both aligns with what you're passionate about and with something that you're also, that you can be very good at, or you are very good at, and, kind of letting those two things align so that then you can, like a laser beam, like, start, like, producing works that immediately connect you with sort of your audience. And I'm 44 years old right now. I feel like I've done that in different times of my own career. But whenever I use the word career, I always feel a little sheepish about it, because it's like I feel like I've had like 5 or 6 of them,
Yeah, but that's the norm these days. And as you're talking about that, you mentioned, well, I mentioned intentionality, and I think you mentioned focus. And I happen to know that you read the book Essentialism, by Greg McKeown. Tell me about that a little bit, and about what that means in this context.
So Essentialism, that was a book that was majorly, as changed sort of my trajectory quite a bit. Like, at the time, I was, in addition to all the music work I was doing as a musician, I was also doing a lot of film production. And the whole time I read that book, I was like, gosh, I feel like I need to stop doing commercial video production. What was happening is, I really enjoyed doing that, and I was fairly, good at it, I guess. But this idea of essentialism is like, just because you can doesn't mean you necessarily should. What are sort of the opportunity costs of doing something that isn't fully in line with what your core sort of intentional path, what you want it to be. And what I was finding is that, while sometimes I wouldn't be that busy with filmmaking or film production, other times I'd be super busy, and just that ebb and flow of that made it so that over time, like, my rhythm as to I had no what do you call it, buffer. I had no gaps in my schedule ever to just like be, or to because a lot of as artists, as creatives, as entrepreneurs, we need downtime and that it's in those downtimes where we start thinking more. We have more time to think, and we start coming up with new ideas, and I just didn't have those. I didn't have that time anymore, and so I suppose that book was really instrumental for me in, well, when I stopped doing video production, and you and I used to work on a lot more stuff together, which was awesome. But that part I really miss. But what I don't miss is just being so fractured. Sometimes like it's kind of unsettling, the silence. When you really do give yourself time buffer, where you're like, well, what do I do next?
So how have you seen that change? That giving yourself some margins in time and focusing and not just doing everything. How have you seen that play out in your work?
Well, one, it's really helped me, with our income, for one. So part of what I do is sort of more artistic things, where, I might do some recording projects or whatnot. But, one thing that I had through all this was my little business, the Irish Flute Store. And it would oftentimes get really like pushed aside. And even though I love the business and I enjoyed, that business, like I just wasn't able to take care of it and my customers like I am now, because I would be like, I would come in, or I'd answer emails real quick, or I'd always be behind on emails, and it would frustrate people. And what it's allowed me to do is just really ramp up the energy into that business that it needed. Not to say that that's all I do these days. It's just that I'm able to give the right amount of attention to it, and I'm watering a little plant, right? And now that plant's growing, and like, last month was one of the best months I think we've ever had. And this is also during a time when our world is kind of in a real crisis with, the pandemic that's going on. And it was kind of crazy to see my numbers, as strong as they were. Now, as an entrepreneur, we know we can never like think that every month's going to be that way. So, but it's clearly like that business is healthier. And so, and the reason partly is because I'm just able to have more time to look at opportunities in business, to take advantage of, and also to take care of my customers better. So there's that. And then, also it's allowing me to, part of that business, it's sort of like, it encourages me to continue to play and to record, do these little video recording projects. And, so it's allowed me to do more of that, which connects me to more people. And whereas before it's kind of like the idea of the cobbler's kid has no shoes. Kids have no shoes. It was kind of like that. It was like I was making videos for everybody but myself, where now I'm able to put that energy into, putting my own, kind of work out there.
Awesome. Okay, we'll get a few more here. There's no way we're getting through all these. There's no chance so don't worry about that here.
Stop.
Using an example of your art from your own past, talk about a time when you guessed wrong about the public's excitement, either good or bad, regarding that work. You produced a piece, because we've all done it, and you thought, this is going to be amazing. Everybody's going to totally love it, and they didn't. Or you thought, this is just a punt, and you just kicked it out there, and the response was like, what, seriously? So talk about that.
Yeah. There's probably better examples, but one that comes to mind is, I think sometimes I feel this way, where I feel like, gosh, it's been a while since I've created anything. And, I'm just going to take the day off, and I'm just going to create something. And, I invited a friend over that I was kind of helping him figure out, teaching him how to work with cameras. And I thought it might be a cool opportunity for him to like, have some time like working with me with camera work, and I'll just record something. And I don't know that I thought a whole lot about it in terms of like if it was any good or if it was like, but it's funny. It's on his channel on YouTube, and I looked it up the other day, and there was some because I wouldn't know if there's comments because it's not part of my account. And a couple people got on there, and they were like referring to like my playing. They were comparing my playing to Matt Malloy, and Matt Malloy is like he's like the godfather of Irish flute playing. Like he's like, he's like the Eric Clapton of of Irish flute playing, and who a lot of us look up to. And I have to say that was kind of amazing. I think that just goes to show that we can try to be self-critical. We can try to gauge public's interest or not. But that was really eye-opening, and it's just like a lot of times I feel like I really don't produce as much content as I could. And because probably a lot because of fear, because of second guessing myself. And, but yet there's artists out there that just kick it out, and they're clearly more successful, to be honest. Like, I mean, while us, sort of artists that are a little bit, more hesitant to pull the trigger, sit on the sidelines, there's just people out there creating. And, I just would encourage myself, but also those watching, to just, if you're struggling with being prolific for any reasons based on like fear or what will people think, to just keep pushing. I have sort of a negative story on that as well.
Yeah, let's hear it. So tell me about it.
So, and I think this is really good for anybody to go through. And this goes back a little bit to this goes back to essentialism, and this goes back to just because you can doesn't mean you should. And so at a time when I was doing a lot of video production and I was doing a lot of drone video work, aerial cinematography, as we like to call it.
You can charge more.
Yeah. Well, I got asked to do by Creative Live in San Francisco. A lot of your viewers will probably know about Creative Live. Great company, great people to work with. They asked me to produce a course on drone videography, and it was a total flop. People hated it. I mean, it just, and part of it was perhaps my presentation. I think part of it is sort of the nature of the live aspect of trying to teach drone concepts and techniques. It's a challenging. I did see some of their previous courses had mixed reviews as well, and I think it's just sort of like the challenge of how do you do that in a live environment. So I'll come back to that. So I think it's good. I think it's good for all of us to develop a thick enough skin that when we have moments of failure, that we can sort of like just think through like, why was it that this thing failed, or and move forward and not take things so personal. It's easier said than done. But I kind of feel like if we're always just moving forward so perfectly calculated that we're never going to fail, chances are we're not creating enough content, enough things. If we're only going to, and this is something even as I say that this, I feel convicted. Just in the ways this week that I've held back of what I feel like I could contribute. But yeah, I think you just gotta keep. I think really, if you're on a focused path for what your whatever it is you're after as an artist or as an entrepreneur, as a creative, it's gonna average out in your favor. as long as, the core pieces are there, that you have some competency, that people are affirming that to a large degree, and not just your mom, but people that who you respect their opinion, and they are sort of an authority in that space.
Yeah. No, that's a good point. All right, we got a couple time for maybe 2 more ish. Depends on how they go. All right, so
Stop.
all right, we got a Jack here. What makes you excited to get out of bed and go to work?
My espresso machine.
Hey, friends, let me tell you, he has an amazing espresso machine.
Yeah.
There's no joke about that.
Yeah, no, I do. I love coffee. The guys in the office here. So we have I work out of a building that my wife and I bought back in 2005, and we used to live in the loft up in the second story. The main floor is a co-working space, and so I get to, and then the basement we have created sort of studio offices for myself and for our business, Irish Flute Store, to run out of. And I think coming in and getting to rub elbows with such creative, talented people. But, what gets me out of bed in the morning, it's, joking aside, like coffee, for sure. Like, I love good coffee. And the guys in the office here, that was the point of me telling you this. The guys in the office here, my nickname is Double Shot, because I always pour a double shot, make a nice, I do a little bit of latte art. But it depends every day. And one thing that helps me get out of bed in the morning is to think about what I want to accomplish tomorrow. So and I don't always do this well, but sometimes right before the week starts, it could be on like a Sunday night, I might think about what I want to accomplish. But then daily, on, at the end of the day, thinking, what do I want to accomplish tomorrow, or how did I do today? And so that because oftentimes there's so many different ways in which I could spend my energy, I can get a little lost. And so just, it's the next project, honestly. And the coffee.
And the coffee.
Yeah.
All right, so here we go. Got a couple fewer than 52, but still too many for us to cover, so let's pick a good one.
Stop.
It's a king. Describe a moment when you experienced beauty.
You know what I think, where I feel that the most, and it happens often when I'm playing music with other musicians, collaborating with people. So I think that's maybe worth saying, that it's, get out of your comfort, or not just your comfort zone, but just, try to collaborate with people, because those kind of moments really do happen a lot when you're working with others. That's just a neat thing. The creative process can get a little thin sometimes when it's just you know. But I'm going to say, outside of my music making and filmmaking and entrepreneurship, one thing that, and I feel like it's just as much my job as any of these other things, is going out and riding my bike. Staying healthy. And it's actually really something that's really tough for me in the winter. I'm really looking forward to this summer. Right now we're in April, and we just got more snow, and I was so frustrated about it.
Foot of snow here in Colorado.
Yeah, and I was just looking forward to doing more biking. But
it'll be gone by tomorrow.
Yeah. So often those moments of beauty are when I'm cycling and I'm climbing up these beautiful mountains here that we have in Colorado, and I'm on my bike, and it's sort of like that runner's high thing that's happening, the cyclist high, on top of just this beautiful view. But sometimes it can just be here in the plains where we live, and the sun's setting and the light's hitting, the trees just right, and the weather's just perfect. Or I don't know. There's something about just getting out and just getting your body to feel good, exercising. As a flute player, like as an Irish flute player, it's said that we're just as much the instrument as the instrument itself. You know, um, you know, and so the better you can feel physically, um, the better you can really play. I mean, it's just true. I mean, that's not to say there's not some amazing Irish flute players that are chain smokers and never get outside. There are, but I just know for myself, and on top of that, that's where I do experience so much beauty. It almost makes one want to become a visual artist, because I really deal more with, making the air vibrate. I more deal with music, versus the visual arts. Although I did a bunch of that with filmmaking, and certainly some of the places that it took me, beautiful, of course. But these days, now that I'm doing more just music work, it's like when I get outside, and and all that stuff, it has to influence the way that you do art.
It's everything. It's not just
yeah,
one
yeah.
thing. It's all the things. Cool. Okay, so it's the home stretch here. I've got two last ones here, and I picked this card for you. What should creators be putting into their brains? It can be books, titles, blogs, music, etc. What should artists be putting into their brain?
So a book that I went through recently, it was called The Artist's Way. A lot of you probably know about it. Gosh, I can't think of the author now. It's terrible. But anyways, The Artist's Way, the author speaks of stocking your pond, basically, filling your tank. So like if you keep fishing from the same little pond and you don't restock it, then eventually you'll have nothing, there'll be no more fish, right? And so when you ask what should they be, really that depends on you. It really depends on the artist. And it doesn't always have, like we were talking about going out and bicycling. For me, that really refills my tank in some ways. But if that's all I did, it would be hard as an Irish flute player to continue to, create great Irish music, right? So for me, the way that I fill my tank is like when I was living in Ireland, I was religious about taking my handy little recorder with me, and I recorded every Irish session. Sessions are where we get together to play Irish tunes, and I would hide that little recorder somewhere, and I would just let it roll. And so now I've got like 2 years of field recordings. So for me, that's a lot of times where I go is to find new music to learn and to play. As I go there, new music. It really depends on the artist, but I think the bigger takeaway there is just to don't forget to keep filling your tank. It always baffles me when I because I know a lot, there's a lot of people out there that are happy, some of my, friends, we grew up on the music of the 80s and 90s, right? Growing up. And that's what they still listen to. I can't imagine that because I just constantly want to be listening to new music. And I think that's fine if you're not a musician, right? But if you are a musician, a lot of music's happened since then, So I think that's the thing. Keep stocking the pond,
That's awesome. That's a super cool metaphor. Last one. How can people find you and your work?
Yeah, these days, I suppose BlayneChastain.com.
We'll put a link in the description.
Yeah, my personal website. I'm starting to put more on YouTube and FaceTube, Facebook. So we'll put the links there. But also my little Irish flute shop. It's irishflutestore.com. That's kind of a neat place to check out. But yeah, that's about it.
Well, awesome. Thank you for working with me through the internets here and the weirdness. And we'll see how this comes together in the edit, because it's going to be quite a thing cutting this all together with what we got going on. But Blayne, thanks a ton. I mean, I've learned stuff from talking to you. That stocking the pond is that's gold. I need to make sure that I'm doing that on a regular basis too.
Yeah.
Thanks so much, man.
Yeah, you're welcome. My pleasure, man. I hope it was of some use for all your audience there. And yeah, cool. Thanks, man.
And cut. That's what they say.